Hi friends, thanks for joining me today. I guess today we're in Cozy Kitchen. Last time we were together I called it Quarantine Kitchen, but as the times are changing we're rebranding. So today we're in Cozy Kitchen. My name is Liz and we are going to be cooking minestrone. So before we start I will quickly show you the ingredients. This amount is for a big batch. You're gonna have a bunch of people over. You want to give it to a friend who's not feeling well, you want to freeze some, it's going to fill up this whole pot. So for a big batch, follow these measurements or cut it in half for a smaller batch. Roughly 2 cups of onions chopped, carrots chopped, celery chopped, frozen green beans chopped, 2 large zucchini cut in quarters, and then I have 1 potato that I peeled and diced. You can add it or not. I think I added it because I had a potato one time and it adds a little bit of thickness. You also need a pound of ground beef or ground turkey, 1 can of tomato sauce, 1 can of diced tomatoes, 1 can of kidney beans, 8 cups of 8 cups of beef broth or beef stock, and then noodles, whatever noodles you like to add to your minestrone. So let's get started. I'm gonna heat up my pan. I heated it up a little bit before we started filming so I could add my olive oil. All right, once my olive oil is there, I'm going to start to cook down my onions. Let's see if we get that sizzle we like. Yay, sizzle. I add in the onions, the carrots, and the celery at the same time because these take the longest to cook. And kind of the key to this minestrone is controlling the heat and what you put in. So by the end, everything is soft, but nothing is mushy because nobody likes mushy minestrone. So I'm going to add my celery, my carrots. Again, everything is about 2 cups, or you can cut that in half. Once those 3 vegetables are in, I'm going to start to layer my flavors, starting with salt. And if you remember from last time, I use a lot of salt, a lot of pepper, and a lot of granulated garlic. But as you'll see, a lot of food is going into this, so I'm not doing overkill on the spices, I don't think. There's my pepper. And some of my granulated garlic. All right, I'm gonna give that a stir to start that stirring down. My daughter used to call this meal minestrone, so I think we probably still call it minestrone. Is that right? I'm asking my cameraman because he was there too. So this is our minestrone. Oh, and if you notice, as these cook down, I'll chat with you for a second. If you were with us when we did the spaghetti sauce, the Thursday night meat sauce, the basic ingredients except for the green beans and the potatoes are the same. A lot of my dishes have the same vegetable base and ground turkey, and I just add different spices and a few different canned goods, and you can have completely different meals, but then you only have to keep the same vegetables in the house. You're not having to purchase a lot of things, so I like that. All right, so when we come back, these vegetables will have softened a little bit, just enough for me to start adding my other veggies, and then we'll brown the meat. So I'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back, friends. So my onions, celery, and carrots have been cooking down for about 2 minutes. Now I'm going to add my 1 diced potato. This is very optional. It just adds a little bit of thickness and starch. And if you have an extra potato, use it. My hands are very washed, don't worry. And my frozen green beans, put them right in there. The zucchini, I wait for the very end because zucchini cooks down so quickly. If I added it now, it would be mush. So we're gonna save the zucchini, which is actually from my garden. Very exciting. All right, you guys. So let me add a little more salt, a little more pepper, and a little more garlic powder. And I'm curious for any of you who've been making that Thursday night meat sauce, when you add in your salt and your pepper, if you've burned the hair off your arm like me. I just would love to know. One more thing I like to add is my Italian seasoning. Again, I use a fair amount because this is a lot of food. And I am still cooking this over a high heat. Everything is cooking over a high heat. I probably need to turn my fan on. Hope you can still hear me okay. All right, so now we have our vegetables cooking, and at this point, I'm gonna slide them over and I'm gonna start to brown the meat. It works. Might not seem like it, but one thing I like about this meal, it's in one pot. So easy. There's my ground turkey. Get that right over to your sink. Again, you don't want to have any contamination from your raw meat. So I slide the vegetables over and I just start to break apart that ground turkey. You could brown the turkey in another pan and add it in if you have other people doing your dishes, which I do, happily. All right, and you guessed it, salt, pepper over the meat. One of the greatest compliments I received about this dish is when I finally fine-tuned it and it was pretty good. My husband, when he would travel for business, said he stopped ordering minestrone at restaurants because it wasn't as good as this. So that was wonderful to hear. And a lot of people really enjoy it, especially if you have a friend who's not feeling well. It is wonderful comfort food. It is very healthy and it saves beautifully. Well, let me qualify that. You can save it in the fridge very well. I don't know if it freezes well because of the pasta. If you wanted to freeze it, I would cook this without the pasta, freeze it, and then when you want to eat it, cook the pasta separately and add it in the day of. All right, so I'm going to brown the meat, and when we come back, the meat will be browned, and I will be ready to add all the liquid and such and start to bring together this whole minestrone. Hi, welcome back. So if you can see this, we have our turkey that is browned. The vegetables are continuing to cook down. This whole time, I'm cooking on a very high heat. And while we were gone, I also added some salt, pepper, garlic powder, Italian seasoning. Again, you can see we have half the pot filled with just most of our vegetables and meat. It's a lot of food. Don't be afraid to add that seasoning. So at this point, I'm going to turn that heat down because I'm going to add my liquid and I don't want it to start bubbling quite yet. And here's what I'm going to add. 1 can of kidney beans that I rinsed and poured out so that none of the kidney bean juice is there. 1 can of kidney beans. 1 can of diced tomatoes, no need to drain. And 1 can of tomato sauce. Sounds a lot like Thursday night meat sauce, doesn't it? All right. Here's where it starts to get a little bit different. For the big batch, I use 8 cups of beef broth. I mentioned you can use beef stock, but beef stock will have a lighter flavor, and my family likes flavor. What I've done here is I use, it's a paste bouillon. So I've melted it into 4 cups of water. I'm gonna add this and then 4 more cups of clear water to give me 8 cups of my beef broth. And you see some of that sediment down there? It's just the paste. All right, I'm getting 4 more cups of water. Gonna add that in. Almost there, 3 cups, and there's my 4 cups. And this gets full. All right, look at that, we're getting so full. All right, there we go. And I'm gonna turn my heat up again. I just don't want it to start bubbling while I'm adding everything. Start to stir, and at this point it starts to look like minestrone. All the colors of a wonderful, comforting Italian meal. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to cover this and allow it to simmer maybe for 3 to 5 minutes. I know it seems kind of silly that I just do it in small increments, but I found with this meal, if you're very careful controlling the heat and cook it kind of the way I'm saying, everything is cooked nicely and nothing is mushy, because mushy minestrone is just not good. So I'm going to cover this, allow it to come to a really soft boil, if you call it a soft boil, maybe for 2 to 3 minutes, and then I'm going to come back and add the zucchini and the noodles and show you how I wrap this whole meal up. So I'll be back in just a moment. I've had this soup covered for a few minutes, only until it starts to lightly boil and bubble. And you can see it there. And the reason I just cover it for a couple of minutes until it's starting to barely boil is I want the liquid to be hot enough to continue to come back up to a boil when I add my last 2 elements. My 2 zucchini from my garden that I diced. I didn't dice them, I quartered them. I'm gonna splash if I'm not careful. It's getting really full. And you can use any type of pasta you like. We have found that the elbows work because they cook quickly and they're a nice size. If you want this to be a soup, add maybe 2 cups of noodles. My family likes this more like a stew, so I add almost the whole box of noodles. Watch this. Yep, almost the whole box. Now at this point, we are going to use what's called carryover cooking. I have found that once I've added my noodles and my zucchini, all right, let me ask the cameraman, do I add the rest of the noodles because there's room? He gave me the thumbs up. You can never have enough noodles, apparently. So, look, it's empty. And we will fill this pot. All right, so everything is stirred in place. I'm going to give it one more sprinkling of some pepper. And it's starting to come to a little boil again. All right, give it a stir. And then here's what I do. I'm going to cover it, and I would say within 45 to 60 seconds, it will be at a nice boil. When it's at a nice boil, I give it one more stir, I cover it, and I turn it off. No more active heat. The heat from your pot will perfectly cook the vegetables and the noodles. It just comes together. This is the best way I found it. So hang with me. Let's see. You can see it's so close to a full boil. The edges are bubbling. It smells so good. Even though it's a summer day, this still smells amazing and comforting. And if you have some sourdough bread, you can slice up with it. And the great thing about this, you can feed a whole bunch of people. You have people coming over. Again, if you want to give it to somebody who's not feeling well, or my family will eat a bunch tonight and then we'll also live on it for probably one more lunch and then one more serving of dinner. Depends on how old your kids are and how much they eat. Okay, that is very close. All right, I need to cover it and not look at it again till it's boiling. And then once it's boiling, I'll turn it off. One other thing I like to do, once this soup is done, once the vegetables are soft and the noodles have plumped up, I put it directly into some glass bowls. I want to get it out of the heat so it stops the cooking or starts to slow the cooking down quickly. All right, I hear it bubbling. Here we go. So look at this. That's it. Give it one good stir. It's bubbling enough for me. Cover it. Turn the heat off completely. Leave it alone. I would say leave this alone for 10 minutes. And when you come back, you will see that the soup is done. So again, no more heat. Keep it covered. Set a 10-minute timer. When we come back, you'll see that minestrone or minestrone will be done. Welcome back. Were you good for 10 minutes and waited? This is worth it because when we covered this up, it was just a bunch of boiling liquid and ingredients, and now we're going to uncover it. Now, depending on how many noodles you used, you might have a soup. I will definitely have more of a minestrone stew, but take a look. Ah, look at that. The noodles are cooked beautifully. The vegetables are tender, but they are not mushy. This is exactly what I like to see. Now, if you check on your minestrone, and things are not cooked to the point you want, don't turn the heat back on, just cover it again. It will continue to cook because this liquid is hot and this pot is hot. I'm really happy with how it is. So I'm going to set this to the side. At this point, I will transfer my minestrone into my glass bowls because I want it to stop cooking, and I'll take it off the heat source. So I will get one more of these, just a moment. So at this point, I'm gonna start to scoop some out, and you can see just how wonderful it looks. I wish you could smell this, but I'm happy to know that when you make your own, you will be smelling just how good it is. But you can see all of your vegetables, your ground turkey, your noodles, your tomato products, your beef broth. It all comes together to make an amazing minestrone. So that's what we have for today in my cozy kitchen. Thank you for joining me. Give it a try. Let me know how it is. Take care.